Hello and welcome back to Tucking It Up. My name is Tuck and I like to play around with makeup. So today I've got a pretty simple video for you. It's kind of a try on and long wear test kind of thing. So I have two new products I'd like to try. The first is the Poreless Putty Primer. I've heard really good things about it, so finally I just broke down and got it. And I'm going to do a side-by-side test against my current favorite. And the other thing that I'm going to be trying out today is a foundation brush from Rephr. It's their number 17. It was on sale and I've been meaning to try out some of their face brushes. I have a couple of their eye brushes and I'm quite happy with them. So let's go ahead and see how these work. The Poreless Putty Primer comes in this cute little tub, very simple packaging, classic e.l.f. And I got the shade Universal Sheer, I should say. So it says on the box that this contains squalene, which is great because then it also helps hydrate your skin a little bit, right? Squalene is one of those, I guess, ingredients right now in terms of skincare. But anyway, so in terms of the texture, the this putty primer is actually quite emollient. Thought, okay, it's going to be maybe a little bit waxy, a little bit hard to apply, but like I mentioned, I played around with it a tiny bit before this, and it's really quite easy to apply. So the Rephr brush, it's a pretty small brush in terms of the size, for a face brush, and I think because it's quite dense also, when you apply the product, it applies pretty quickly, pretty evenly, and you get pretty good coverage with less product compared to maybe a sponge or your fingers or a less dense brush. So let's go ahead and try these on then. Let's start with the primer. So I'm gonna do this side of my face, the one with the mole. Yes. Sorry, just had to look. I can't quite tell in the viewfinder, and you'd think I would remember this by now. But anyway, so this side with the Innisfree primer, and then this side with the e.l.f. Putty Primer. As you can see, neither primer leaves any sort of color on my skin. So now both of them are on. There's a slight difference in feel of the two sides. The left side, it's definitely got that kind of silicone-y, kind of slippy feel. I would say the e.l.f. side doesn't quite feel like as silicone-y for sure. It does feel a little tiny bit more tacky, but it doesn't feel rough. Okay, so the instructions say to let the primer set for about 30 seconds, and it's been about a minute actually, so this should be quite good. So let's go ahead and start in with the foundation. For foundation today, I'm going to use the Makeup Forever Water Blend Foundation, and then I'm going to set that with my Bare Minerals, mineral foundation. Using my fingers, I'm going to just dot it along sort of my T-zone, mainly around the center of my face. I'm going to go in with the brush, and I'm going to do sort of short strokes to build up the coverage and apply the product. So once the foundation looks like it's gone on well enough, and I kind of have the coverage I want, then I'm going to start using circular motions to start buffing and blending everything in. Okay, just blotting to make sure that if there's any excess product or oil, it's gone from my skin now. Okay, cool. So in terms of the brush itself, how it performed, I think I found it a little bit, actually, interestingly, a little bit quicker, I think, than using the beauty sponge that I usually use. In terms of coverage, I don't necessarily see a huge difference between using the brush and a sponge. Could be because this is kind of a lighter foundation, and so I shouldn't expect that difference anyway. So it'll be interesting to try it out with a more full coverage sort of deal. But in terms of the finish, it looks pretty good. I mean, maybe even a little bit better than usual. It was easy to work with using the brush. So yeah, I guess so far so good. But this brush actually did make it easier to get into, I find, the sides of my nose, those sorts of areas. In terms of, a difference between the two sides, so far I haven't noticed anything in terms of the the finish. Maybe this side is a little tiny bit more radiant than this side. Yeah, could be. And then, but in terms of like how the primers feel on the face, there I can feel a difference. So here I can, it feels like I've got like that sort of silicone layer on, so it's a little bit heavy. And then here it does feel sort of nice, more like hydrated. Maybe it's all psychological, but it does feel a little bit better on this side with the e.l.f. Putty Primer. So I should probably have filmed this, but I didn't, so apologies. But for concealer, right, after I put it down in the usual spots to blend it in, instead of using my fingers or a sponge like I usually do, I used the Rephr number 17 again, and I think, everything is blending in quite nicely. I think a little bit better than usual. Sorry, just got a spot of buildup there. For the corners of my eyes, I still use my fingers because the brush is still a little bit fat to get into there. But for like the chin, the forehead, even the bridge of the nose, I'm quite happy with how it all looks right now. So far so good with this brush. So I'm also going to use this brush now to set with the Bare Minerals Mineral Foundation. So usually when I apply, the Bare Minerals to set everything, or actually just for my everyday, I use the complexion blender brush from Real Technique. So I think using the Rephr has given me, again, more even coverage. It looks less cakey than that. Sometimes it can. I feel like it does look a little bit cakey when I use that Real Techniques brush on top of like liquid foundation, but today's so far so good, and it hasn't really disturbed too much, even with like some blending. It hasn't disturbed too much, the places where I spot concealed or kind of the places where I've, highlighted with concealer. So I think I really quite like this brush. Okay, so let me go off camera for real this time and finish off the rest of my base. So done with the base, and I did a little bit of the brows. So far, I'm not seeing a huge difference between the two sides yet. My foundation tends to crease kind of around my smile lines, laugh lines the most, maybe because I talk a lot, I guess. And I noticed the Innisfree side was starting to, I guess, crack or crease just a little bit more than the Poreless Putty Primer side, but nothing dramatic yet. So let me go ahead and I'm going to film another video, do a look, and then we'll check back in and see how the two sides held up against each other. Hey, I'm back. It's been about 3 hours since I put on my base. Obviously, like 3 hours isn't a huge time frame for a wear test. But generally speaking, I would say, if there are major differences, you would probably detect it by now. And honestly, I don't see too much difference between the two sides. The putty primer side, I'd say this side of my face is a little bit more radiant. Maybe I don't know if that shows on camera. I do prefer this side. I think a little bit more because like I said, I think in the past I've just gone like super matte too much, to that end of the spectrum, and so my skin ends up looking a little bit dry and dead, or can. But yeah, in terms of like, performance-wise, I think both of them have held up well. I don't see too much settling of foundation in my lines, either in my forehead or like my smile lines. And maybe that has not so much to do with the primer, but more kind of the brush, right, that I use. And in terms of the brush, I'm really happy with how it put on not just the liquid foundation, but then also the powder on top. And it, like I said, it really did not disturb the spots where I spot concealed, and it blended in the highlight the highlight areas really nicely. So definitely will be using this brush more in future looks. Hey, so just wanted to check in again. I wasn't really planning on doing this, but then I ended up keeping on this look for quite a while. So it's about 8 p.m. now, which means I've had the primer on, for what, 6-7 hours? Anyway, So both sides are still kind of quite comparable, actually. I would say the Innisfree side, again, has remained more matte. I did have to blot like my whole face anyway. Once between the end of the filming and now, but I do notice on the elf side, I don't know if you can even pick it up on camera, but there is more settling of the foundation in my laugh lines on the Innisfree side compared to the elf side. So thank you so much for joining me, and as always, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Take care of each other, and until next time, bye!